All right, everyone. Hello and welcome everyone to
Hello.
Hello.
the and final series of the National Pan-Atlantic Council of Central Delaware's Men's Health Awareness. I am Naisha James of Theta Zeta Zeta chapter of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. I joined this illustrious organization in February of 2019. I am the treasurer of my chapter and the Delaware State Cancer Prevention Awareness Coordinator. It is an honor to host this series titled Having Prostate Cancer Doesn't Make You Any Less of a Man. To recap, our first series was prostate cancer awareness presented by Mr. David Souls, a prostate cancer survivor himself. The second series was on living with polycythemia vera, a type of blood cancer that causes your bone marrow to make too many red blood cells, and that was presented by Mr. Weston James. If you missed it, both recordings including this one, will be posted on the National Pan-Atlantic Council of Central Delaware's Facebook page for viewing. So I'm going to introduce to you the 5 panelists of men that will converse and share, along with sharing their experience and knowledge with prostate cancer. So the first one is Mr. Robert Ginyard. He's the chairman of the Board Zero, the End of Prostate Cancer. He is an entrepreneur, a family man with 2 lovely young girls. He is a radio host and with his own program out of Baltimore, Maryland. We also have Mr. Johnny Payne. He's the vice president of the National Alliance of State Prostate Cancer Coalition. Mr. Payne is a leader in South Carolina's prostate cancer support group for the last 10 years. He has participated in the Consumers Peer Review Panel for Research for Prostate Cancer, sponsored by the Department of Defense. Johnny can also speak for 30 straight as it pertains to prostate cancer. So if you got some information that you still want to share, we have the time, Mr. Payne. So Mr. Harold Stafford, he is an Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated of Psi Iota chapter of Dover, Delaware. Mr. Stafford is a former Delaware Secretary of Labor cabinet member under former Governor Ruth Minor. On June 15th of 2018, Mr. Stafford began as a new member of the Delaware State University Board of Trustees. Mr. Stafford has over 31 years of state executive experience. Mr. Stafford founded the Stafford Firm, a management consultant business to assist nonprofit and government agencies to implement quality standards to improve performance and streamline operations. And finally, Mr. Stafford is the author of Ellis Waterboy, Stanford, An American Dream Fulfilled. Then we have Mr. Mark Thompson. He is a graduate of Delaware State University. Mr. Thompson is the owner, chef, growth officer of One Spirit Message Studio, LLC. Mr. Thompson enjoys over 14 personnel in his business. Well, he employs, I'm sorry. And last but not least, Mr. David R. Souls. Some of you remember him from our first series that took place on the 13th. Mr. Souls is a National Alliance of State Prostate Cancer Coalition board member, Delaware Prostate Cancer Coalition, Executive Council board member. Mr. Souls is educating and empowering men about the importance of screening, testing, and sharing as it pertains to prostate cancer. Mr. Souls serves his country by joining the United States Air Force in 1967. After graduation from DSC, Mr. Souls has numerous awards, but the 2 which stands out the most are the Meritorious Service Medal and the United States Air Force Good Conduct Medal. Mr. Souls has completed more than 100 plus marathons during his year as a marathon runner. The states are as follow. He's done New York, New Jersey, California, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Virginia, Maine, and Massachusetts. And he is also a member of the Psi Iota chapter of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. So, Brother Souls, I will passing it on to you.
Thank you for that introduction. I have some more pages to send you if you like. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good
I'd
evening.
like to tell my story, and then I'll just pass it over to Robert, or everyone to be next. Robert, you want to be next?
That's
Um,
fine.
All right. I was diagnosed in 2005 with prostate cancer. But before that, I was a constant person who would go to my doctor to find out what's going on with my body. My PSA uh, was around 3.6, and the doctor said, "I think we're going to watch it." The next year I went in, it was 4.6, so that meant the biopsy was coming. The biopsy was taken. I went home, got a phone call, told me to come in. I'm sitting in the office, just he and he said, "Got some good news for you and some bad news. The good news is that the cancer that we found in your prostate was very small. The bad news is that vice versa. The bad news was that you got prostate cancer. The good news was that it was very small." So, and what do we hear? All the members here would know when we hear the word prostate cancer, the only word you hear is cancer. And I was like numb. So I went home. I didn't ask any questions because I figured my wife and I will talk about it. I went home. She asked me, "Are you okay?" And I said, "I'm fine." She said, "No, no, you're not." Women are very, very intuitive. She knew something was wrong. So I finally broke down, not crying, breaking down, but I told her what was going on. And her birthday was the next day. It was, I remember December the 23rd. Her birthday was the 24th of December. We sat down, we discussed it, and I said, "We got to work out this together." I decided to get a radical prostatectomy. That means taking the prostate out of your body. That was done. But beforehand, let me go back. Beforehand, I did talk to other people. You have to find out from other people and from other doctors. I didn't get a second opinion, but now I tell men to get a second opinion. I knew what I had to do. If you know what you have to do, you just go ahead and do it after discussing with my wife. But you should get a second opinion. In my case, I didn't have to rush it. Back in 2005, I wasn't too up to about prostate cancer, so I wanted it out of my body. But you don't have to rush this. And mine was very low. I had a 3+3, which is 6, T1, T1C, which the prostate wasn't found through a digital exam. It was found through a blood test only. So I knew I had time, but I had it taken out of my body. Uh, in the operating room, they did their thing. I woke up looking at my urologist, Dr. Zaragoza. No, I'm sorry. I was in New Jersey, looking at my doctor, smiling at him. He asked me, "What are you smiling at?" "Oh, why are you smiling?" "Not why are you smiling." "So why are you smiling?" And I said, I know the man above has given me my mission. I said, "I'm fine." He said, "How do you know that?" I said, "Well, I just know it. He says that from this point on, I have to go out and tell all men about prostate cancer." At that point, I knew what my task was, what my mission in life is. And from that day, 2005, I knew that I would not stop talking about prostate cancer. And every man that I see, prostate cancer comes out of my mouth. If they're around me for more than a good 15 minutes, it comes out. If you look at me, you look at some of the survivors on this panel here, you don't think they may have prostate cancer. They all look like ordinary men. And ordinary men do get prostate cancer. And I'm an ordinary man who was in excellent shape. Why did it happen to me? Why not? You know, God said, I got something for you to do. Your task from now on is to go out and tell your black brothers and sisters, your brothers definitely, that prostate cancer should not be an epidemic in your community. I've talked to doctors in our meetings, in Zero and also in the national meetings, and I did a DOD peer review. And Rob, I think you did one, and also Johnny Paynes has done them. Yes, and the doctors, when we sit down in the bar talking, not drinking, talking, the doctor, they would tell you, they said, we need your input. They actually need our input. Survivors, they need your input. And they were telling me, African American communities, men are dying for the reason they don't go get checked. We need to get checked. So ladies, if you're listening, ladies, please tell your significant other, prostate cancer is not a death warrant. It's something you can do to prevent. You have to get checked. You have to know your family history. And that's what I'm doing. My family reunions, I talk about prostate cancer. I give my speech to my relatives. I talk at fraternities. The brothers know I've spoke about it at fraternities. Prayer breakfasts, I've spoken. Anytime I can talk about prostate cancer, I'm able to talk about it. I want to talk about it. I'm not afraid to talk about it. And I'm think that a lot of young folks, especially in the University of Delaware, Delaware State University, I was doing a health fair. I'm finishing up soon. I was doing a health fair, and a young man came down and asked me, "What are you guys doing here?" And we said, "We're doing a health fair on prostate cancer." He goes upstairs, calls his mother, and says, "What did Dad die of?" She told him he had prostate cancer. He was shocked. He comes back down. He tells me, he said, I went upstairs. I called my mother. And she said, our father died of prostate cancer, not telling us. And he's a senior in college. He said, I needed to know that. So he's a good reason why we have to talk about our health problems with our family. We need to know. Now, he needed to know that early before a senior in college. He needed to know that earlier. So this is my task. My mission in life is to let people know about prostate cancer and do whatever I can to educate and advocate for prostate cancer. And with that, I turn it over to Robert.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Robert Ginyard. I'm the chairman of the board of directors for Zero, the End of Prostate Cancer, and I'm also a prostate cancer survivor. I met Johnny and Dave several years ago at one of our summits in DC. But my story is similar to David's in that, I was diagnosed at 48, and it came through a routine exam. And, every year I would get checked. And sure enough, over the years, my PSA was rising, and it got to a point where my doctor said, hey, look, I'm not satisfied with this level, and I think you should see a urologist. And so I did see a urologist, had a biopsy done, and of course the results came back that I did have prostate cancer. And again, like Dave, and I'm pretty sure we'll hear it from some of the other men on the panel, that I went to my wife, who's my rock and my anchor, and we talked it out in terms of what the next treatment levels would be. And so sharing the information with my wife gave me a bit of a lot of comfort in that, a lot of times you get this diagnosis and you start going to the internet and you're talking to people and they're telling you one story, and then you're finding something on the internet and that contradicts what they just said. And so you really find yourself in this abyss of all of this information and you don't know how to sort it through. So, having initially gone through that, I just shut it down. My wife and I, decided what plan we were going to go with. I did have a radical prostatectomy, and that was followed up by hormone therapy and radiation treatment. So I was diagnosed in 2010, treated 2010 with the surgery. All of my treatments were over by April of 2011. And I actually came to be a part of Zero back in 2013. And so I've had a long history with the organization. What I like most about the organization, it was meeting Dave and Johnny, they really are on a mission to try to end prostate cancer. And so that's what I think keeps the three of us tuned in to what's going on there. But David, you brought up the point about the information being in our community. And one of the things that I always run up against when you talk about prostate cancer, most men don't like the exam, the digital rectal exam. And the other thing about it is they always, the topic of Tuskegee and Henrietta Lacks always comes up in terms of this, in many cases, these men are saying that, hey, look, we don't trust the government. We don't trust any test that they may administer. And so while I understand that, because that is a red flag that goes up in our community, but what really, I guess, bothered me in that when I was looking for men to talk to or different surveys or research, I couldn't find enough research to help me make my decisions about which way I was going to go with hormone therapy or radiation therapy, because there were not enough Black men who participated in those studies. So one of the things that I'm really high on now is making sure that we can get Black people involved in clinical trials, and then having us hold those people who are providing those trials, make sure we hold them accountable for the data that they're collecting. Because what we really need to do is we need to create a reservoir of information so that other men behind us can make a decision about treating prostate cancer. So I'm glad to be here, David. I'm glad you invited me. But again, my message, like yours, is to really get out and push the word about prostate cancer. One of the things I'll end on this. One of the things that I'm also really interested in knowing is that how are the stresses of living as a Black man in America affecting our mental state and therefore our physical state? And why are we more susceptible to diseases? Why do we get them at a higher rate? And so that's one of the things that I'm working on now, is just to get more information about how some of the social determinants are affecting our life and in our communities. So with that being said, I will turn it over to the next person, but I'm happy to answer any questions anyone may have.
Nisha, you want to call someone else, or should I?
I know Ricky Hardy has joined. Mark wants to go, he can.
Better speak, say it loud. I don't think he heard you.
Okay, Mark.
Sure.
Yes, hi, this is Ricky. Sound like I heard my name popped up.
Oh, yeah.
Who's next, Mark or Ricky?
Okay. Well, thanks, David, for asking me to speak tonight, and I really I appreciate everybody that has supported and started the path for for men with prostate cancer, to come on to talk about their experience, strength, and hope. I was diagnosed with stage 4 prostate cancer back in 2013. Well, actually 2013 is when I had my PSA levels started rising. My general primary care physician stated that I should, watch it, and we watched it for a while. And then it had jumped up to like 4.7. So he wanted me to go to a urologist, and I said, no, I don't have time for that. I don't. I hear that the PSA level is not reliable. And I thought I didn't have any symptoms. I didn't have any blood in my urine. I didn't have any symptoms, and so I ignored it for about 6 months. And my primary care physician said, let's check it out again. It was still had gone up, and I was doing triathlons at that time, so I was doing 6 to 8 triathlons a year, teaching spinning classes 3 times a week. I thought, I don't have time for this. I have a business to run. I have spinning classes to teach, triathlons to do, and manage my own practice. So I decided to, went back to the urologist, and they wanted to do a biopsy, of course, and it came back with a Gleason scores 3+3 was 6. I had 2 tumors. So they also referred me to a tunnel cancer center here in Lewis, Delaware, and I went to them and had a consult with them. But I also reached out to Johns Hopkins, and I also went to the Graham Tunnel Cancer Center. And I'd been an advocate for my mom for many years, so I knew how to, research and do things, and what it stated before, getting on the internet, finding out a lot of information that was false out there. So I thought I had to turn it over and trust the doctors and what their opinions were, and trust that I was being led in the right direction. So I ended up having laparoscopic robotic surgery at Johns Hopkins in 2014, and had that. And about 9 months later, my PSA levels started rising again. So they were concerned and had me go through a medical oncologist. And so I was looking at that and had started bone scans, CAT scans. And unfortunately, my PSA and my prostate cancer metastasized into my sacrum, my ilium, and my pubic area in the bone. So then I ended up having bone metastasis. And, I thought my life was over with, and that was, 6 years ago. And I thought, what am I going to do? I have a business to run, and and things to do. I definitely had to give up the spinning classes, and David's taken that over for me. And David's been very instrumental. I went to the Delaware Coalition of Prostate Cancer in Dover, Delaware, and Milford for a support group. And I walked in, and these older guys were in there. They looked at me and they said, "Mark, you know, this is a prostate cancer support group." And I said, "Well, I had prostate cancer. I was 47. And now I'm a double nickel. I'm 55. So, you know, you can live with this thing. Early detection, the PSA, the digital rectal exam, you know, definitely saved my life. You know, if I didn't have those, I would never have caught it for a long time. So I definitely recommend, you know, September's Prostate Cancer Awareness Month. And today, you know, I had the surgery in 2014. I've had radiation treatments, and now I'm also on Lupron, the Adrian, or the ADD, or whatever it's called, but the Lupron therapy medication. I have to get a shot every 3 months, and I'll probably have to be on that for the rest of my life. But right now, that treatment is saving my life. So hopefully I can help other men, you know, not to have to go through what I've gone through the last 6 years. That's the most important thing. And David's taught me that. We stomped the grounds on Capitol Hill with Zero at a summit a couple of years ago. And we had great fun. So hopefully we're doing it this year virtually. And maybe next year we'll get in and be there physically together to see everybody. And I was born and raised in Dover, Delaware. I ended up going to Dover High, and then I went to Delaware State back in '87. I love their program, and it was a great education. And I was in sales and marketing for an alcohol and beverage company at the beach area. So that's how I ended up here at the beach. It was a very stressful job. And my doctor back then, she said, "Mark, you're going to have a stroke or a heart attack by the time you're 40 if you don't change something." And that's how I got into physical fitness, personal training, spinning class. And I ended up going to massage therapy school over in Baltimore. And now I've been doing that now for 21 years. And ironically, when I first got diagnosed with the cancer, I had 2 therapists that were already trained in oncology massages. So I was getting massage therapy treatment with oncology treatments while I was going through my radiation treatments. And I think it really saved me mentally, physically, and spiritually to do those things. And I was so grateful that, you know, it gave me a chance and gave me hope. And that's today, you know, I want to give people, guys, hope. I usually don't tell guys that are normally diagnosed with prostate cancer that mine had metastasized to the bone, because that usually doesn't happen. It's usually a slow grower. So I don't want to scare people saying that, you know, it could metastasize, but I'm so grateful today that it's under control. I have to do different things. I finally got myself a recumbent bike, and David and I both did a pedal weight cancer last year, or 2 years ago. So it was a 25-mile bike ride. David followed me all the way, and I came in last, but at least I finished. When I was doing triathlons, I would hit guys in the ocean, hit them, they would hit me. And it was all about winning the race. But today it's about enjoying the journey, and life is not a race. It's a journey to be living one day at a time. So thank you.
Very good.
Thank you very much, Mark. Okay, we also have Ricky Hardy. If you can give us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, thank you so much for the invite. I'd like to take a few moments and just share what has happened to me since 2017. I was diagnosed with prostate cancer after over a 5-year or 7-year watch with an enlarged prostate, taking medicine and back and forth, struggling. So I had the biopsy, and it came back Gleason score 3+4. I had the robotic surgery in 2017, not really knowing a lot about it, but I'm active. I'm a minister of the gospel, believing God for healing, and but also wisdom. Wisdom, if this is something that's really killing Black men, then at age 57, I really needed to take a hard look at I needed to do something about it instead of just sit back. So talking with the urologist, they made recommendations about the robotic surgery. I didn't really know a lot about it. So I just trusted God that he would take me through. And since 2017, exactly what they told me would happen has happened. I have to learn, a lot of the functions over. You go through a whole pride thing of recovery. And, prostate cancer really attacks you at your manhood. And just getting past the pride part of, I'm this big, strong man. But if you don't do something about it, you're going to be a dead man. And that's the way it was presented to me. You can have this surgery, you can do this and live, or it's not going to get better. So with that being said, I was very active as I listened to Mark and Dave and Robert. I was very active in playing basketball and out in the community and playing golf and jogging. And so I had to go through a sit down period where recovery allow your body to heal. And but I'm back up again. And God has raised me back up where I can play basketball again, or ride the bike, and have walks with my wife and my family. And but I'm out advocating the importance of awareness. As I come along beside Dave and the Delaware Prostate Coalition, very active with the board and just sharing with other people that we need to get checked out. We need to take a few minutes and go and talk to your doctor. Swallow this big thing called pride and go and get checked out. What do you have to lose? Do it for your wife and do it for your family. Do it for those that you love. If you're struggling with it for yourself, do it for those that you love. With that being said, I can go long-winded, but I'm gonna give you the short abbreviated version tonight. Get checked out. If you have medical challenges, there's life after prostate surgery. There's life after that. There's good life, a rich life. So we don't have to see it as a death sentence. When I sit in the doctor's office and looking him in the face, and when he told me, Mr. Hardy, you have prostate cancer, I thought he had the wrong record. I'm not sick. They found it through blood work. So with that being said, I just encourage anyone that's on this Zoom tonight, your family members, your loved ones, talk to them. Don't try to use scare tactics. Just give them the facts. The facts are this is one of the diseases that targets Black males. And males in general, go get checked out. It's for your own benefit. It's for the longevity of you and your family. All about family. Those that you love should drive you or provoke you to want to take care of your health and take care of your body. That being said, I just like to thank the moderators tonight, and Dave, thank you so much for the invite. Keep on doing this good work, and much prayer. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. So, Mr. Stanford, if you could go next.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everybody. It's such an honor to be part of this distinguished group of brothers and sisters. My story is very similar to the stories that you've heard from the other brothers. I was diagnosed with prostate cancer. I'll never forget it. It seemed like it was just yesterday, November 4th, election day 2004. After I'd gone and voted, I went to my doctor and he gave me the results. And I had been seeing the father of my current urologist, Dr. Michael Zaragoza, who's chair of the board of our prostate coalition here in Delaware. His father was my urologist for about 15 years. And it was kind of interesting. His dad had told me, he said, one day I went to him and he says, Harold, the weakest organ in your body, I don't know how he knew this. He said, the weakest organ in your body is your prostate. And he said, I want you to start coming in to see me twice a year. And he eventually retired and he passed his practice on to his son, Michael. And I started going to Michael twice a year. And like one of the brothers mentioned earlier, I think it was Ricky, I had an experience of an enlarged prostate very frequently. And eventually on November 4th, I was diagnosed. My PSA had gone up the month before from about 3.78 to 4.8. And I went back in and did another PSA test. And when it came back at 4.8, I had the biopsy, and 4 of the samples tested positive for prostate cancer. And for me, I wasn't really shocked so much about the concern for myself, but I was concerned for my parents, because I had lost 3 older siblings to cancer. 3 weeks before I was diagnosed, we buried my one and only sister from brain cancer. And I was really struggling with how I was going to tell my parents that I'd been diagnosed. So I have 2 younger brothers still alive. And I said to them, I says, once I decide what I'm going to do, I'm not going to let my parents know what's going on. And so I went for a second opinion at Johns Hopkins, and I had the surgery there at Johns Hopkins, a radical prostatectomy. And so after I had the surgery, I then called my parents and told them what had happened and that I was fine, that my pathology results were negative. The cancer was contained within my prostate, had not gotten into my bones or my lymph nodes. So at that point, I knew that God had given me a new lease on life, that my mission was not complete at that time. I was 56 years old. The worst part of my prostate surgery was the catheter. I had that catheter, as you brothers know, inserted into my penis for about, I guess it was about a week. And that was the most painful experience of all that I went through with that prostate surgery, because I was blessed to have, not to have had any chemo, no radiation. I think I might have taken 1 pain pill. And after that, it was just struggling with the catheter. So I came through it, was fine. And after I was able to kind of resume normal activities, the first thing I did, I wanted to restore my strength. So I went to a gym personal trainer, and once or twice a week, I think it was twice a week, I was put on a regimen. And I eventually was able to get back into the gym, lifting weights and restoring my body's strength. And after that, it's been 15 years since I had the surgery, and I've resumed all normal activities. And I would just say, I think it was Robert that said earlier, one of the most difficult things I've had in talking to other brothers is they don't want to be violated by having someone insert their fingers up their anus to examine their prostate. So I always tell them you have a choice. You know, you can be violated, or you can be stressed out, and people will be paying their last rites to you. So you have to be more proactive about your health. The doctors can't do it all, but you have to take some responsibility for being proactive for your own health. And that's one way to do it, by early prevention and detection. And that's really what saved my life. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
You're
We
welcome.
now want to hear from Johnny Payne. Need for you to unmute yourself, Mr. Payne. You're muted.
Okay, now I'm off. Yeah, I was going to take myself off. Okay. First of all, I want to thank you for inviting me. And I would like to say that we can't overemphasize how important that we have this technology, because if it wasn't for Zoom and other platforms like this, we would not be able to communicate in this era of COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
Normally, this is a real busy time for me. During September, I'm normally going to some seminars. I'm doing some speaking engagements. I'm doing some free screenings with some of our local hospitals. And so far this year, I did 1 speaking engagement, 1 radio interview, and then this. So I'm really appreciative of this. my story is not that much different. Like I told David, I really don't like to talk about my story because I really don't think it's that special. When I first was diagnosed, I was diagnosed in 2002, so I might be the old man on the panel, 2002. And at first, you know, I thought it was kind of special. Hey, I'm a survivor. I'm a survivor. But the more I talked, the more I found out that there were a lot of men like me. And the reason I didn't know that is because we don't talk about it. We need to talk about it more. And that's one thing I try to get men to do. I learned so much in my, when I was doing my research to decide which treatment option I would select. I found out so much, and I was shocked that I didn't know this information. I always thought I was a guy that was always pretty aware and on top of things. I did not know any of this stuff. And I'm being a black man, this disease affects us more than anybody else.
Right.
So I thought to myself, well, if I didn't know that, I bet there's a lot of other men out there just like me. They don't know this stuff either. And I was right. And that, I guess, led me to what I ended up doing. I ended up following the kind of the educational route more so than the advocacy group, although I do support the advocacy, but I consider myself more of an educator. So anytime that I can talk to people, share this information with them because they may not get it from anywhere else. And one of the strange things I found out, which didn't make a lot of sense, but sometimes if you dig a little deep, it does, that some people would rather hear information from me and guys like Dave and guys like Robert than the doctor. Because like what Robert said earlier, there's a lot of distrust out there in the medical community. And that's one of the things that I'd like to say, piggybacking on what Robert said. We need men, we need black men in these clinical studies. And I get it about Tuskegee, and I get it, but if these studies don't include black men, they're gonna get flawed data. Perfect example, in 2012, these two big studies was released. One was done in Europe, one was done here in the United States. And that is when, if you remember, the United States Preventive Services Task Force, they came out with this ridiculous grading system that put, I think they graded at the time a D for prostate cancer. And what that meant, that pretty much said, you know, you can get screened, but it's really not that effective. And we see men that are dying, just as many men die who have been screened has not been screened. So that was a real big controversy there. And so we are suffering from that because there were not any black men. There were a few black men in that study, but not enough to get any real hard data. So I encourage black men to get in these studies. I just saw something the other day, you know, you can't have talk about anything unless COVID-19 comes up. And there was some presidents of some, I don't remember the schools, HBCUs, and they were encouraging their students to take part in the COVID clinicals. They got a lot of negative pushback from that, saying that they shouldn't do that. I know it's a thin gray area, but I think at the end of the day, we gotta be a part of these. So don't want to take up too much more of your time. A little bit more about me. I was diagnosed in 2002. I had the radical prostatectomy. I do encourage men to get second opinions. I was so crazy, I ended up getting 5 opinions. The only reason I did that, I was trying to find somebody to tell me I didn't have cancer because I was in denial. First got a real high PSA. My PSA was 15. Most men that I know that went through a successful treatment don't have a PSA that high. PSA 15, Gleason score 7, stage 2 disease. But after that, I had my radical prostatectomy. I had a positive margin, so there was a little bit of residue of cancer cells there. Came back with some external beam radiation, which I didn't want to do. My doctor talked me into it. I'm glad he did, because it knocked it out. And it's been like 19 years, and I haven't had, I get a PSA every 6 months, a year, and so far, no sign the disease has returned. People ask me, are you cancer-free? And I'm a little bit pessimistic kind of guy, if you get to know me. And I said, I don't know yet. So far, I am. But I hesitate to just say I'm cancer-free and go the rest of my life thinking may not come back. Because if it does come back, I will be the first one to be disappointed. So I don't want to disappoint myself. So I'm just, honestly, I think I would be surprised if it comes back, but it can. I've known men. I knew one guy after 15 years, it came back. So that's about it. And just keep in mind that this disease affects Black men more than anybody else. That's why we need to get into trials. That's why we need to be, as Black men, we need to be more proactive about our screening. And like now they're saying, you know, you don't really have to get screened. Yes, you do, but do it what we call informed decision. And just because, and I'll leave you with this, just because you do get screened doesn't mean you got to go out and get treated. Get screened first, do your research, explore your options, and make that informed decision. And that informed decision for you may not be surgery, and it may not be radiation. It could be active surveillance, but be very careful. And I said one thing, us as Black men, we need to be cautious with our active surveillance. And I do support that because I do know that overtreatment is a real huge problem. It's a big problem. So it's not easy, it's complicated, but we can do it because we're Black men. And thank you so much for asking me to come.
Thank you for that. We will now take questions or any concerns that you may have. I have one right now. Is a PSA automatically given by the primary care physician during a routine checkup, or does a man have to request it?
Well, sometimes you got to request it, and that's the bad thing. I mean, you should, when you get to that age of 40, your primary care physician should automatically include that in your blood work, but they don't always. So yes, you ask just to make certain. If you're the age and you're at that level in life, you should ask.
You know, what I also want to say is if you have sons, there's a higher probability that your sons will likely get prostate if you've been diagnosed with prostate cancer at some point. And I said to my son, he was going to his regular family physician, and I asked him, had he had a PSA test? He had not. And then I said, at this age, he was, I guess, around 40. I said, you need to have your family physician recommend a urologist that you should start seeing sooner rather than later because of my prostate cancer history. And he does that.
Exactly.
You know, I would also add that I also think it's important to have a relationship with a general physician, because what I've seen in the past is a lot of men get diagnosed. They haven't gone to the doctor in years. They get diagnosed, and then they're just, you know, it's just this big rocket shoot to get treated. And I don't think you really have a good opportunity to digest everything that's going on. And I think to have a primary care physician is important because now you have a relationship. You have somebody who's been watching you over years, and they can get a better feel for what's going on in your body and what can happen in the future. So I think it's really important for a primary care physician. And then again, for men, I think it's important for us to kind of assemble that dream team, if you will, where you have to have your primary care physician, your urologist, your ophthalmologist, you name it. You do need a team of medical professionals that can help you navigate through life. And because the last thing you want to do is just be thrust into a situation where, you know, I got cancer. Now I got to see this doctor that I don't know. I've got to see this oncologist that I don't know. And just like, you know, your doctors will have, your primary care physician has a network of people. And so you trust who they are going to send you to. So I think it's really important to have a primary care physician. And again, have a dream team of other medical professionals that you can go to when you have issues.
Yeah, and along with that, Robert, in order, you mentioned about getting hit with this at the last minute, then you rushing, your mind is all messed up, you're trying to do all this research. It's never too early to start getting educated. When I speak to a group of men and I see there's some guys in their 20s and 30s, I let them know that you're not at high risk for prostate cancer at your age, but let's do your education in your 20s and your 30s. And when you get in your 40s and your 50s and the 60s, then you'll know what to do about it. So it's never too early to learn all this stuff, and you'll have this stuff. And also, you can learn a lot better. Your mind is going to be a little bit better open if you don't have cancer. Because if you got cancer, you're just thinking about dying.
Yeah.
You're not going to the library, you're not getting on the internet, you're not doing your research. And if you do, it's not really sinking in good because you're not thinking with a clear mind.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, let's do our research and our education early.
Mm-hmm.
But I know for me, I did my research to a great extent, but it also helped me to talk to other men who had prostate cancer. It was an invaluable, you could never put a price tag on the value of those conversations that I had with all those other men.
Exactly.
It helped me.
It's good to have your baseline, you know, to know, like you're saying, the primary care physician is going to let you know if you're, you know, have prostate cancer in your family or other cancers. Breast cancer is like her sister to prostate cancer. And if it's in the family, but you need to know your baseline of your PSA at 40. They're
Right.
saying 50, but I was diagnosed at 47. If I waited until my 50s, it wouldn't have been good. And I didn't have any cancer in my family. My sister had breast cancer, but the only reason they did a PSA is because I was also taking the testosterone. My testosterone was very low at that point, and my primary care physician decided to put me on a testosterone supplement. And they think now, the medical oncologist thinks that exacerbated my cancer. It probably didn't cause the cancer, but it exacerbated it, made it grow quicker. And I probably got diagnosed at 47. I probably would have had prostate cancer, but maybe not until my 70s or 80s. But it's good to know the baseline. What is your baseline for the PSA? And then they look at that to see how it increases. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a physician, I'm just from my experience, but I see some of the questions in the chat room, and I wanted to make sure that people know about the PSA. And usually the primary care physician needs to do that. You do need to ask for it, and you have to be your own advocate.
Right.
To be able to become an own advocate and to ask for that PSA test. And don't be fear of the finger. You know, just make sure they have small fingers. But it's not and I had my biopsy under a local thing, and there's so much new technology. That's what I like about the Dover urologist, because they have the new MRI imaging. You might not even have to have a biopsy this time. I mean, there's so much new technology that's coming out for us to be diagnosed quickly. And I had a woman today, by the grace of God, I think people come into my life for a reason. Today I had a client, it was a woman, it's her birthday tomorrow. She was on my treatment table, and I interviewed her. I did my intake form. I went back in, I washed my hands, came back being COVID safe, and came back in, and she put a net or a sock thing on top of her head, and she didn't have it on when I was doing the intake, but I looked down and she had Survivor, and it was pink, and she was a breast cancer survivor back from 2001. So afterwards we got to talking, and I told her, I disclosed myself, and I don't always bring up that with clients, but she was a Black woman with her sister, and I told her, about how it's more prevalent in Black men. That's David's taught me that. And with me, it's like 1 out of 9 men. With Black men, it's 1 out of 6. So that's why it's so important to make sure that we all men, but specifically more Black men, need to make sure that they know what their PSA is, and especially if they have family history.
Brother Souls, you're on mute.
Dave's on mute. Mute, David.
Mute. Unmute you. Boy,
Dave.
technology.
The host can unmute them too.
Can you hear me?
There he is.
All right, you got me.
Okay.
No, I just want to interject. As a veteran, I did some blood work, and sure enough, I saw down on my blood work PSA. And when I went in, I said, I didn't ask for PSA, and they said we do that automatically. So that's one thing right there. Plus, I'd have a lot of veterans who won't even ask for a PSA. And if you're a veteran with Agent Orange, that's one thing I keep telling veterans, you need to go and check that out, because now Agent Orange is being covered by the VA. Those guys can get paid.
Yeah.
And a lot of the brothers, I come to them, I say, hey, listen, man, you Vietnam? Yeah. I said, you need to go to VA and tell them about you've been in Vietnam. You got prostate cancer. well, I've been saying so. No, man, you got to go get this checked out. So that's one of my tasks. Secondly, is that if you go to your primary doctor, you can ask for a PSA. They should not deny you. You can say, hey, can I have PSA? And they can't say, no, we don't do that. It's only a blood test. They can do it. So ask for a PSA. If you don't ask for it, they may not give it to you. You can ask for it. All right. So that's what I have to say. Yes.
Hey, David, two things I'll add. One of the things that Zero has been involved with is working with different states to eliminate the co-payments that many people had to pay to get the PSA test done. So we were successful in Maryland, and I know we've got some other states on the radar screen as well. But what we're trying to do is break down that barrier for men to even ask for the test, because for women it's automatic in terms of mammogram, and so we wanted to make sure we were on equal footing for the men. And one thing I'll add to Johnny's point is that when you talk about the education piece, most men, until you are dealing with a prostate cancer issue, most men when they're older don't even know what it is. And so, when young women are growing up, when they're younger, you see the anatomy charts in the classroom, and of course they show the breast, but most men have no clue where the prostate is because of its proximity in the body, and it's kind of hidden and back here. So you really don't have a clue until you start having issues. So, that's part of that education piece that Johnny was talking about, that we also need to let young men know where it is and what it does.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Right.
I even got to a point where I knew some gym teachers in New Jersey when I was living there, and I asked him, could I come into his health class and talk about prostate cancer to his boys, to the boys, like the juniors and seniors.
Mm-hmm.
He said he didn't know if he could do that with the superintendent, but I would like to do that. I've been trying to get in to do that.
Yeah.
They need to know early so they can get their fathers, to go in. If a young boy who's 17, 18 tells his father about prostate, I learned something about prostate cancer in my health class, father may say, wow, you know something I don't know. I better get this checked out, Right. So, I'm still working on that. I think you need to have it in high school.
Well, let's make sure we follow up and talk about how we can integrate that in part of that curriculum at some point in the schools, because the young men need to know at least where it is and what it does.
Yes, yes.
Good point.
But next question. It's going over time.
You have a question?
So Calvin with a question.
I know can a man get a PSA test if they don't have a primary care physician or health insurance?
Well, yes, many times, and normally, like I said, when I was talking to you, during September, we did a lot of free screening. So there's ways to get it. You might have to, go walk a little bit more and ask a little bit more, but yes, you could get a free screening. There's places, I know here in Greenville, South Carolina, New Horizon, there's the Greenville Free Health Clinic. So there's options there.
Yeah, there are. I think Bay Health has their nurse navigators. If you call Bay Health in Dover or in Milford, the nurse navigators could direct you for free screening. There's some kind of a insurance. I was talking to a physician the other day about the uninsured and the underinsured and the not insured. There's ways that people can get things done if they don't have insurance or they don't have enough insurance to pay. Is Trina Turner on the line still? I guess not. All right.
Dave, I'm here.
Yes. Isn't there a way that we can people can get a screening if they don't have the monies for it? The nurse navigators can somehow get them screened.
Yeah, I work with the Delaware Department of Health and Social Services, and we have a program called Screening for Life.
Right.
And that covers people who are underinsured or who don't have any insurance at all to help them get screenings done, depending on their income.
Very good. All right. I knew it was something like that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
All right, we have any more questions or concerns they want to have addressed before we close out?
Wow, that was fast.
Right.
Hey, Robert and
Yes.
Harold and Johnny, we got a lot more things to go. We got some more questions we want, don't we?
I love to ask questions. I love to ask questions.
We
I mean,
love.
there could be some
Hey,
questions among the survivors.
yeah,
Even as a
have to say,
survivor,
you
I
know,
always have
we need
questions.
the questions. Come on, what are the questions?
All right, well, maybe you guys can have the opportunity to answer this question, because I believe Mark may have addressed it, but from your point of view, what advice would you give a man who may struggle with the stigma, especially at a young age? Because, you know, like you, one of you stated that the guys and the young men in college who need to know this information and need to be aware.
Would this be the stigma of the exam?
The stigma of getting an exam each year.
Okay. Well, and again, this gets back to having a relationship with the general physician. But the stigma, you know, again, it all in my opinion, it gets back to your why. Why are you living? Why do you want to live? What are your goals? What are your plans for life? If that matters to you, then a DRE and a blood test, particularly a DRE, because quite frankly, that's what most men steer away from.
Yes.
You know, it really gets back to what matters to you. And if 3 to 5 seconds of a DRE, if that gets in the way of you trying to plan out your life, I don't know what else can convince you. You know, again, how much do you value your life, and what do you want to get out of it? And again, I've heard many men that will say, look, you know what, if I have to get a DRE, I'd rather just die with cancer. I mean, it's crazy. And I know Johnny and Mark and many of you may be able to tell the same story, but some of the responses that we get back from men, why they don't get a DRE,
astonishing.
Blows my mind.
Blows my mind too. It does. No,
Yeah. And that really gets back to the education. I think if men, young men, old men, whatever, if they understood the real reason, if you just say, hey, now one of the mistakes that we probably made, and I know I probably made this early on, is hey, come on, let's get screened. You get all this, but you didn't give them any information why they were getting screened.
Exactly.
Even myself, I'm not gonna go let somebody just start fingering me if I don't know the reason. Is there any good reason for this? So, but you start with the education, and every time that we have a free screening, we always have an education component on it. And it doesn't no good, even after they get their number, even after they get screened and they walk away, they need to know what to do with that. They need to know what this means. Where do I go from here? Because just knowing that my PSA was a 5 or yours was a 6, I mean, that's not enough. You got to complete that circle.
Yeah.
So speaking of numbers, what numbers should you be looking for when you talk about getting tested? I hear everybody talking about 3.3 something, 4, and then somebody mentioned they were in the teens. So what numbers should you be looking for?
Well,
to raise the flag, I guess, or bring awareness to it.
It depends. It always depends. Right. First of all, the older you get, the higher your PSA is going to be anyway. My dad died at 95. He had a 7 PSA, and I said, look, don't worry about it. At your age, it's going to grow so slowly, you're going to die from something else. And he did. So the main thing that's most important rather than the number is the movement, how fast it's moving. And I give you just a quick example. If you have 2 individuals and both these individuals have a 5 PSA, no, have a 4. Let's say they both have a 4. One individual, and these 3 individuals, they were screened for 3 years consecutively. One individual had a 3 the first year. The next individual they both had 3s. The next year, this individual still had a 3. And then this individual over here, he had a 4. And then the next individual, the first guy, 3rd year, he still had a 3. And the other guy, he had a 5. Well, The individual with the 5 is the individual that you would be concerned about, because his PSA is rising. And the individual that's staying level, even if it's a 4, a lot of people years ago, we said if it's got a 4, then we're going to do a biopsy, and then we're going to go further. But if it's not moving, that's an indication that your cancer is not moving. So it's a difficult question, and there's no real hard answer on what number. It depends on the movement, and it also depends on your age.
What I would say is that it's a good reason why you should keep track of your number.
Sure.
Exactly. I knew for me, 1.5 was always the norm, somewhere in that range for many years. And when it went from like 1.5 to 3.78, that raised the red flag. After 15 years of being at that 1.5 numbers, it shot up. So then, just to make sure that that was not an anomaly, had another one done within a month later, and then it went to 4.8. So that told the doctor and me that there's a problem possibly in the making. So you need to keep track of your number. It'll help you to know what's kind of been the norm for you.
Yeah, true.
I think too.
Everybody's different. We're all different individuals.
Right.
That's what makes it difficult.
Yeah, I think Mark mentioned it earlier too, that get a baseline. That baseline gives you a number, and from that baseline, if you see it raise, going up, then you know something's wrong. So that baseline is very important too. That's good, a good idea.
Hey, I'd like to share right there, Dave, if I could, about we're talking about PSAs and Gleason scores, and for me it was like practical guy. You know, the urgency and having to go to the bathroom, the frequency, and my quality of life was impacted. So I know a lot of guys, they get these symptoms first.
Yes.
You know, you know you need to go to the bathroom, and you just went a little while ago, and why I got to hurry up, and I can't hardly make it to the bathroom on time. And these are the kind of quality of life issues that would drive. I mean, a lot of guys are living with that. They're being watched. But to get to that point, you know your body is saying something. Your body is speaking to you that you need to get checked out. That's not normal. That's not normal for the frequency. Okay. So when your body starts talking to you like that, that's what happened to me. It was more that my body was saying, I need to get checked out. Somebody need to tell me what's this medicine stuff. I don't want to take this medicine, but it's helping me from the frequency and the urgency, and which led into the decision for surgery.
Yeah. And Ricky, that you were very fortunate that you had those symptoms and those signs. Most of the men I know, including myself, and I guess David and Robert can attest to this with other men they've talked to, unfortunately, most of the time with early stage prostate cancer, we don't have those early warning signs. We don't have those symptoms, and we think everything is fine. I never was sick a day in my life. Like one of the gentlemen said, the toughest thing that I went through was wearing that catheter for 3 or 4 days. Yeah. So, and that's why the testing is so important, because that way we might be able to discover this disease before those symptoms start. And many times after the symptom starts, it might be too late to do anything about it. I mean, you can still treat it, but your chances of curing it is going to be less if the symptoms start. And it's nothing that anybody does wrong, because if you don't know about the symptoms, what you do, except that education part, and realize that there's a possibility that you could have a disease without having any symptoms.
That's right. Good.
There is a question here. It says, how can we encourage more African-American not get a PSA test, but also participate in a critical trial, especially considering the lingering negative effects of the Tuskegee experiment?
I think Robert mentioned that already. Robert?
Yeah, I'm looking at the question and encourage more African men to not get a PSA test. Okay. I don't know why we would not want them to, because at least, you know, again, and I think this is where a lot of the controversy comes in, because you get the PSA test and then people rush off to treatment and you start getting into over-treatment issues. The PSA test gives you, like you mentioned, Dave, that kind of that baseline to know where your numbers are. Now, with regards to clinical trials, and again, the questioner talked about the lingering effects of Tuskegee. And as you mentioned also, Johnny, you know, I can just tell you from a survivor standpoint, I get what happened in the past. We cannot forget that. But what we cannot do is let the past impact our future, and we don't benefit from any kind of research that helps us live longer and productive lives. So I guess my answer is to that, okay, now that we have the model of Tuskegee, and that's an experiment that went wrong, how do we use an experiment to make things go right? Now, there are more African Americans with the intellect to be able to challenge the research and set some kind of guidelines in place that we're able to monitor what's going on. And if anything goes awry, we can catch that. But I have to say that if we continue to look at that past experience, that's going to affect how we get treated in the future. So I think we just need to get more involved with clinical trials, but we also need to keep our antennas up to make sure that we're monitoring what's going on in those trials.
And because of that, and we know that this country got a real bad PR or black eye, whatever you want to call it, because of Tuskegee. And I believe because of that, everyone is going to have their eyes on any clinical that involves a lot of black men or women.
Yes.
So I'm banking on the fact that you screwed up in the past and we're watching you, so
Right.
you're not going to let this happen again. So I feel pretty good about it. I would undergo a clinical.
Yeah.
I would.
Well, you know, and I'll say this quickly, Johnny and David, you know, and we've been in the room with the doctors and the scientists and all of these people. So we're hear what they're saying. They hear what we're saying. We see the same information. So kind of that margin of error for folks to go off and do something a little shady is diminished because now we're in the room. There's all of these eyeballs on them to make sure that they do the right thing.
I've listened to a video this recent, matter of fact, today, Dr. Lisa Morgan.
Yes.
You know, yes, she involved with the research going on now about disparities in minorities. Northwestern University and a couple other universities around the country are doing some research about that. They need more minority black men, women also into these programs to find out, not to find out, but to get more of us in it. And she has the program that she's involved with, and the video is really nice. I didn't remember a lot about it, but I know she's saying that there are major colleges, universities rather, who are into diversity, try to find out why they are and how we can correct it. Yeah.
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is something that I definitely wanted to shine a light on because I was given a task to come up with a project. And one of the things that being part of a sorority and being around a bunch of group of women, we always focus on us. So me as a mother of 4 young men, well, actually 6 men combined with my husband, this is something I would like to address because we're always taking care of the women. It's all about the women and the children. So let's focus on the men, you know? So with this coming out with this segment, I just thought it was important to bring this up because we just want to let everyone know that men are our support system. They're there for us. They take care of us. They're here to support our family. They go out and they deal with the struggles that us as wives and women don't see those struggles because, you know, you guys converse with each other. So to bring this to fruition and let everyone see that, hey, we got to focus on the men too. It's all about the men. We're here to support our men. So this is the reason why I wanted to have this. So I appreciate you guys participating and being able to give your time on this and educating. Because like I said, to have the males, because I love my men. I love my boys, you know, and I'm mother hen, I'm mother bear rather. I will come to defense and jump up no matter what is going on that I'm doing to protect my sons. So this is good information for me as a mother as a sister and a wife, you know, to know this information, so that, because I did like Brother Soul's presentation when he had it on the 13th, we go get breast exams. Oh, we know, oh, it's time for my breast exam, you know, we go. And that starts at, now it's starting at the age of 40. So the men, I don't know if you guys think that way as well, but I'm that monkey on my husband's back to be like, hey, did you go get checked? You know? So
Great, great.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark. Johnny,
Thank you, David.
Good job.
Thank you.
Robert, Harold,
My pleasure.
Ricky, thank you very much, guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good
It's
week.
nice to meet you.
Thank
All
you.
right, you guys have a good one. Have a blessed evening.
You're welcome.
Thank you.